Hi everyone, it's Desiree. We are here with another simplicity video. If you're here for the first time, the simplicity videos remind us that to make cards, it can be an extremely simple process. And what do I mean by that? All you need is cardstock, of course your card bases, a pair of scissors or a paper trimmer. You can handwrite your sentiments. You can print them down on a printer, or if you have that favorite sentiment stamp set. That's all you need. You don't have to ink blend, you don't have to watercolor, color pencil, alcohol markers, or anything else like that. By simply layering and cutting your cardstock into shapes, whatever they may be, you can have beautiful cards. They also make great gifts. So if you have that someone special that still believes in writing a note on a piece of paper to somebody, then this is perfect for them. I recently started that at the end, I don't take my measurements. I just enjoy the process, have fun cutting the shapes, and putting the cards together. I get asked a lot of times, what were those measurements? What was that measurement? And I just don't know. So what I do now is I create a digital download with those measurements for you and the steps to put that card together. Those downloads are always available on my website, which I will have linked down below, and they are $1.75. And yes, I won't make the mistake that I did last time. Just saying. So let's get started. And I'm going to show you how I break down this pad. I may not use it. I used this actually before in a very early simplicity video, but it's still in my stash. So let's break it apart and let's see what we can create. We are only going to make cards on this one. All right, let's get started. Okay, so first I'm going to take the paper pad and break it down. I want to separate it. 9 out of 10 when you get a paper pad, whether it's a 12 by 12, an 8 by 8, a 6 by 8, a 6 by 6, all the different sizes that are available now, there's always multiple copies of the same sheet. So I divide those up. Excuse me. For these here, when it comes to those pads that have a large sentiment, now, depending upon how it's set, I'll put them into the one pile. I'll put them into, once I split that out. So once I have those two separate piles, then I'm going to go down even deeper. Especially the one where I'm going to make the largest mat, the background. And that's what I'll refer to it as, the background of the card. I do pull in solid cardstock, but very little. So I'll choose one, usually two. Two is my go-to accent colors. Sometimes I'll go into a third. If I go into a third, I pull one sheet of each. If I pull two colors, I pull 2 sheets of each. Just so that I can have enough. Usually the solids, they can become the main background. 9 out of 10 as well, I'm working on a standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'll make the solid mats. I'll usually make, you know, 1 sheet of that, so I'll have 4 into the 4 mats, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Here I'm digging into the first pile. I'm digging into that first pile that I created, the main one. I'm creating the backgrounds, those larger size mats. Now these can be cut anywhere from 4 1/8 to 5 3/8 to 4 by 5 1/4, or I may keep it to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It all depends for me what the pattern is. I really am not taking any notice of what the measurement is becoming down on my trimmer. I'm just not noticing it. I'm going with what I'm liking, what I'm feeling, what that pattern is telling me, how much of that pattern I want to see. And that's how I look at this. This is how I enjoy the process. Don't get me wrong. I mean, however anybody enjoys the process is fine. I'm not saying you must do it my way. No, not at all. It's just something, and it's why I created the digital downloads. I mean, they do take time because I'm literally measuring after the fact, after I put the cards together. And sometimes I get really creative with the design. Like there's one in here that I've got to figure out how I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to measure this one, but I'm going to figure it out so that I can create that digital download. I got many questions. What was the size of this? What was the size of this? I wish I had the dimensions. So that's why I create the digital download. But at the time when I'm filming, can you tell I'm wearing a pink shirt when I pick that up? At the time that I'm filming, I'm not noticing. I'm just going with what these pattern papers and what they're going to look like. The only measurement that I'm doing when it comes to the solid cardstock is if I'm using it for the first mat to take up that 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You can see I'm keeping all of the scraps after I'm making those mat covers, those mat cuts, because they can be used. They can create banners. They can create strips. They can create a background strip. Anything is possible. Anything at all is very much possible. So again, I'm just having fun getting all of these panels together. I like everyone to see this process. And again, maybe I mean, if you want, you can try to catch what I'm measuring there, but to just say, you can just start cutting, or maybe you have a piece of scrap that you're like, you know what, I really don't want to cut this. I really want this whole thing. Keep it the whole size. And then it will fit as long as it's smaller than the card base that you're using. And again, we can make any card base. You know, we've gone into slim lines have been the craze. You know, I love the 3 1/2 by 8 1/2 side. There's a 4 by 9 that you can make. And now we've got the mini slim lines. So you can make any size card you like. I do like a larger size card. I do gravitate towards the 3 1/2 by 8 1/2 or the 4 by 9 slim line or the 5 by 7, 6 by 6, and 7 by 7 card base. Because to me, it's more landscape to work with. What I'm finding is I love to collage. Well, I didn't just realize that. For those of you that see my video, yes, I love to collage. But the collaging, I love mixed media looks. So it's almost like I'm taking an art journal concept and putting it on a card. I'm finding I'm doing that more and more, which again is something that I enjoy, and it's something that I can teach you. So you can just keep that in mind. Now I'm just matching up. So I have all of these different size panels going on here. I've let the pattern paper tell me what it wanted, what it was looking for. Some of them that have the sentiments, I cut right along that. I used my trimmer as a guide to say, okay, this is even on this side and this is even on the other side, to just cut that out. It'll be trimmed down more as I continue to create these cards. So now I'm just matching all of those up. I do love the color palette of this. Again, it's different. It's a non-traditional color when it comes to Christmas. So it's got gray, it's got browns, it's got tans, and it's got some silver going in there. Yes, I'm hearing silver and gold singing in my head again. Every time I say silver and gold, it just pops into my head. And I watch it every year. Yes, I do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm now creating some strips. Again, these are not going to be, in some cases, the match strips. Some cases they'll turn into the match strips. But I've now gathered up the designs with all of these things as I was building prior I was actually setting up what my cards were going to look like. I never know how many cards I'm going to come up with. I just let the cuts and the pattern paper tell me, okay, I'm going to have 10 cards with this. Okay, I'm going to have 12 cards with this. There have been paper pads where I've gotten 25 cards because I had small focal points made on that. And you can do that as well. So again, it's all kinds of fun. When I'm doing this here, a lot of you have seen where I take the pattern paper and I put it on top of the solid color cardstock, and I cut along it. I don't measure it. And that's how I create my border. But yes, you can measure it. And again, when I do that digital download for you, I give you those measurements. Those measurements are put onto the digital download. There are so many ways to craft and be creative. And I think that's great. This is the one that's going to be fun to get the measurements. But I was having a lot of fun with it. And I'm up for the challenge to, one, get those measurements, and two, this is actually, by doing the digital download, this helps me to create more different designs. How far can we push these designs when it comes to pattern paper? You know, to keep them different instead of making the same ones over and over again. So this is what I have left. So those are the scraps there. And I do keep all of those scraps. They get thrown into my journals as I continue to create. And these are all of the designs that we're going to put together. So here, I'm actually going to show you how they're going to be built. How I constructed them. I do love the way that this tan and this gray and this brown and even white just come together. You wouldn't think that would go together. When you have browns, we automatically think of ivory. When we see silver, we automatically think of white. Because gold leans towards a warmer tone. White leads toward a cooler tone. So that's, at least that's how my brain segregates this. Just a little bit, but it does. It works beautifully. You can see I love to weave the paper to create different scenarios when it comes to that weave. So having that band going from left to right, weave through these strips, I think is great. So yeah, this is going to be fun to, this is the one. That's the one that's going to be fun to do. So here we've got a solid, we've got a pattern, and then I'm using the solid as a mat again, and then I'm using the solid as a mat again. What the mats do, at least for me, they help to segregate the patterns so that each one is caught by the eye. Can you take each of these blocks of the pattern paper and put them on top of each other? Absolutely. If you've seen any of my previous videos before and what I say about a kit, it is the same for a paper pad. Paper pads are designed, absolutely designed to go together. No matter what piece of pattern paper you pull from there, it will match. It's how it works. It's how it looks. It's like fabric. When a fabric comes out, you have that strip, and it's called the salvage edge on a piece of fabric. And on that piece of fabric, it's white or ivory, and it has these color dots. Those are the colors that are in the material collection. That's how you can match that up. It may not look it, but it does. Every single piece goes together. You can see on some of the cards that I'm putting together, I'm using a mat. A lot of these cards, I did not. Very few did I use a mat. Case in point, here we go. I've got silver glitter deer's head. I've got a tan poinsettia, and I'm taking it right on top of that. I'm not putting a mat. And you can still see the pattern paper. You can see it, but it's not popping at you. The one that's popping at you now is the tan one because it's sitting on top of that solid color. Solid colors will create that frame, but each one is individual. So when you look at that, your eye's going to that tan and then it scans to the left. Our eyes and our visual functions in a way, in that way. There's something that's going to catch our eye, and then we scan the rest of it. So by not using those solid mats for everyone, that's what I'm going to get. You can see here, I'm taking down that corner and I'm putting that on a mat, and then I'm trimming it. I usually like very thin borders. So usually the mat, whatever, and how I'll measure that is I'll measure that pattern paper, and looking at that border, I know it's a 1/8 of an inch border going around it. So then that means I'm going to add 1/4 of an inch to the measurement. So that's how I look at that. I also measure that mat to make sure that I'm correct in my thought process. Your mats can be different. Your mats can have a larger border on two sides and smaller borders on another side. So you can play when it comes to creating your borders, creating your mats. Creates a sense of looking down into it. So that can trick the eye to make it look like, okay, this is 3D and it's going down. Just by simply having a different border on each side. When I cross over with that piece that you just saw, I did use a solid piece. Again, because I wanted that to stick out. I wanted the ornaments to be pushed to the back. Even though, in the beginning, you could have stopped right there and have that illusion that's coming into play. Here I've matted my pattern paper, and now I'm using the solid cardstock to create an illusion in the back of a present. And again, just simple strips going along, and then I'm taking, even though this is not, see, me and tape runners do not get along. That's why every once in a while you see me using them, because I'm trying to get rid of them. I'm using them up. I fight with tape runners like there's no tomorrow. I really want to bring back my ATG gun. I love my ATG gun, but I think I'm going to hit the camera if I do it. But I believe we're going to see it very soon because I love it. So you can see I finally ran out. Now I'm moving on to another one. And again, you know, when you clean house, you find all kinds of things. So here, the pattern paper was dense enough, it means very together, a lot going on, glitter, that those three pieces will stick out. I didn't need a solid piece. And again, it all depends upon the pattern. I get asked a lot, well, this is a large pattern compared to a small pattern. They absolutely, if they're coming from the same pad, they are definitely going to go together. Can you mismatch pattern papers? Absolutely, I do it all the time. And my eyes will tell me, no, that doesn't look right. And then you'll be able to adjust as needed. So again, your eye's going to tell you, your eye, as you continue to look at colors, your inks and everything else, you'll be able to say, oh, that's a cool shade. Oh, that's a warm shade. Because I find I'm able to actually start doing that now. And it's really, really cool. All right, so we're coming to the end, and I'm going to switch back over to talking live as I show you each of the cards. Okay, so you can see how I put that together. So I take the paper pad and I break it down. If it's got multiple of the same sheets, I make the piles, whether that's 2, 3, sometimes 4. One of those piles is cut down to the main mat or a large size mat. Then I just start cutting pieces in rectangles and strips, and that's what I stick with. Again, thinking not everybody has a die machine. Not everybody is going to have a circle die. Now, that does not mean that you cannot grab a roll of tape, draw your circle, and then cut your circle around. That's something that we will be getting into. Doesn't mean that you can't create your own shapes and templates, and that will be coming soon as well. Matter of fact, I'll be providing you those templates. So again, we don't need all of this fancy equipment, and I know it's kind of an oxymoron statement to say, because there is a lot of those items that I do have. But for somebody who's just starting out, who wants to see this craft, this is the perfect way to start. And I'll be honest, even for me, I enjoy making these. I enjoy just creating these. It cleans, it's almost cleansing of the mind for everything that I'm putting together and working with. And maybe for you too, it will help you. Maybe you need that quick card in a second. These are perfect for that. Now, if you noticed, as I was making these, and I'm just going to start fanning these out, that I didn't put them on a card base. You don't have to, okay? You can just put them on what I refer to as a design base. And my design base is usually either 4 5 1/4 or 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that I set these in a box, and when I need that card, because I totally forgot to make a card, or I just forgot that the event was coming up, I have something that I can grab and put onto a card base. It's very quick and very simple. Now you also see that I pulled in mainly 2 other sheets of solid cardstock. I pulled in a brown and I pulled in a gray. I'll always pull at least 2 colors in, usually, when it comes to a paper pad, just for the mats. I love making mats. It helps for some patterns to really pop. It separates the card, and it just kind of creates this geometric look. I used 2 sheets of brown and gray. That's all of what I usually grab when I have 2 colors. The paper that I used for the gray and the brown, and even the couple white card bases or design bases that I used here, it is the Recollections 65-pound paper. So you could get one of those big value packs that has all the different colors for you, and it will last you a good long time to match up to your paper pads. So again, something else to think about. Now, there's other things. Now, again, you will be able to, if you're interested, there will be a digital download available at the time that this is shown. It'll be listed in my website. That'll be linked down below, and it will be $1.75. Yes, I promise this time. I get a little stupid sometimes, but thankful to all of you, you remind me. Thank you. So, and that wasn't sarcasm. That was a true thank you. But you can also do, if you remember, I pulled out one of the sentiments. So I cut it on an angle. I used my trimmer to have it be even, but you could use a ruler and then cut with a pair of scissors. And then I just used a couple strips to center them. I cut this block here and use the strips as my guide, but we can always tear our card. Why not? I love tearing paper. It is so relaxing. Here's the other sentiment. Again, just matched up, just did a simple measuring going each side, and then again, just matting it. And it's a beautiful card. I mean, just because you didn't write it, we don't do the stamps. I mean, we just do the stamping. We didn't write the sentiment. So again, same principle. And then of course, you gotta love, I love ripping paper. And again, doing the same thing as well. So again, we have a lot of options that are available when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to that paper pad also, it came with a lot of sentiment blocks. So you could use these. Now, if this is a gift, you could just pile them up, and then you can just have, that person can just place these as they want to and just have fun. There's a couple tags in here. And you can just add these as you will. I like to keep them blank with no sentiment. As always, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope I gave you some ideas and those paper pads that we just love to hoard. I know I do. So break them out, have fun. Even if you just pull out 10 sheets out of that pad, You know, here I've gotten a total of 14 cards. So it's kind of cool. If you have any comments, make sure you list those down below. I do not believe this paper pad is available anymore, so I will not be linking it. But again, any paper pad can be used. If you haven't yet, I'd love for you to subscribe. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and hit the bell, because you may be reminded by YouTube that the next video has gone live. I don't know. It's, you know, it's every so often. And again, if you're interested in more in-depth tutorials or different videos focusing on a tips and tricks, like one item, 5 ways, that is a video series that I have in my Patreon. And I also have all the content over there is exclusive. For them, not only do they receive this download for free, but they will also be receiving the instructions for these 4 as well. So everybody, have a great day. Enjoy. But always remember what is most important. Always be creative, guys. And until the next video, take care.